What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin.
And we have yet another album review for you. And one that I've been actually anticipating, even though this is essentially a brand new band to, well, both of us.
Yep.
But I've been hearing a lot of cool rumblings about this. And after finally getting to jam it, I can see why there's a little bit of hype around this. So today we're going over the debut full-length from Ancient Death, Ego, Dissolution. This also comes out on the 18th of April on Profound Lore Records. This band formed in Massachusetts in 2021. This, again, is their debut full-length, though they do have one EP, one demo, and a split they did with Putridarium back in 2023. But I have listened to none of those. This is legit a fresh band for me, even though it does have some members that have been in like some pretty notable acts, namely Atheist, Cruciamentum, Churchburn, Till the Dirt, and Garroted. That is the Garroted from Massachusetts, not the ones from other places, because believe me, if you look this up on the archives, you're going to find a lot of Garroteds. That rhymes.
Kind of. That kind of rhymes. You're reaching there.
A lot of Garroted?
There you go.
That kind of works.
A lot of garroted works, and that's fun to say. In fact, I'm just going to hold on to that.
And for those that don't know, this is death metal baseline, but I would say this borders on progressive death metal / atmospheric death metal / technical death metal.
Yes.
Man, this is an intense, wild listen.
Wild is pretty much an understatement, although I listened to this record a couple times. I listened to it once and took notes and then wanted to hear it again. Without being hassled by writing things, I just wanted to listen to it. It's a wild listen, but I think the second time through I found it a little bit more cohesive, if that makes sense too. It's wild in the sense that I'm reminded very, very much of bands like Atheist and Gorguts and Death. And if you've listened to any of those recently, you're going to kind of catch on to what's going here. Opens up with the title track, Ego Dissolution, feedback, wild off-time grooves, lots of big Middle Eastern melodies, a gigantic atmosphere. Like, the scope of this record is pretty goddamn huge, and I'll tell you why that's important. When this initially opened, I thought, this production's kind of muddy. The guitars seem a little bit muddy. And then it opened up, and then it all makes sense.
When I talk about like textures in music, like this is a really good example, because when this album is heavy, it is frantically heavy, like constant twisting harmonies and guitar interplay, blast beats, crazy off-time drums. But when it gets down to cleaner moments, which this album has a lot of clean passages on it, which add to the haunting, almost kind of like cosmic atmosphere in here, it feels like more like smooth and kind of silky overall. There's a really cool passage in the opening track, but as you go on, there's a lot more, especially on Journey to the Inner Soul, which is a really awesome instrumental in here. Awesome warm bass lines, which all this was on a fretless bass. And it's not like the flashy fretless bass where you're doing like the lead noodles. It's just smooth.
Yeah,
it's just awesome.
It's crazy because when you said fretless bass, like, I'm used to listening to like Primus and Exvius and stuff like that, where it's notably a fretless bass. Like, you can just tell the slides on it, right? Well, this one is pretty dialed in and just feels smooth and warm. Like, I wouldn't have guessed it was a fretless bass, so props to the bassist, because I couldn't tell.
I liked it because, like, well, the bass lines are awesome. Like, the bass lines, when they get down to those isolated sections with the cleaner guitars and such, they are as catchy as any of the riffs on here. And B, it is kind of refreshing to hear, like, fretless bass play without, like, the more noodly, proggy stuff, like, like Beyond Creation and stuff.
Right.
Not dogging those bands at all. They're amazing what they do, but I like this kind of like more settled down bass, because for me it makes the rhythm section feel even tighter on here, and the drum work on here is absolutely nuts. But the main thing on here is just this twisting, constantly shifting maelstrom of riffs. My God, this is an insanely riffy album, but it is also like just constantly shifting around. Lots of riff changes, lots of transitions, again, lots of just interplay between the guitarists. And holy shit, this album is fucking pregnant with leads. Like, this thing had a litter of leads, and They're awesome.
And they're so tasty and so very well done. And again, not overly flashy, but they're tuneful. Nick had mentioned that one of the guitarists is actually from Atheist, which makes total sense, having seen Atheist live last year, and it blew my mind. Like, it just, I don't know, it makes sense in the lead play, too. Songs like Echoing Chambers, Unspoken Oath, Violet Light Decays, those all have amazingly wonderful solos. In fact, the one in Echoing Chambers was the first time I went, ooh, during a lead. Like, it was really, really good.
And as wildly progressive and at times like kind of abstract as this album can be, it knows when to kind of like latch on to a riff and just kind of play with it. In fact, vocals on here are rather minimal. Like, you know, there's not a lot of like long vocal passages, and if there are, it's more or less like just a few words kind of drawn out. Mm-hmm. Most of this is music, and honestly, it's kind of a jam session in spots. Like, there's points where they kind of like just jump into a bridge and just riff out, throwing some clever harmonies. You get a couple of badass leads. It gets a little bit more groove laden. And that kind of makes this a little bit more digestible because, I mean, I would say like this is also on par with a lot of stuff like Blood Incantation.
100%.
Definitely Phobophilic. And honestly, I would say a band that has been absent for a while, Obliteration. But yeah, lots of like twisting, angular riffs. But, you know, they're good about centering in on like some really good catchy ones. And this is absolutely loaded in melodies. But again, listening to this album is like navigating a treacherous sea of riffs. Because some of these are just out to get you. There's some distant, like weird ambient stuff. And you get those cool calm spots, which I grew to appreciate more with each listen on here. You get these like nice dropouts where you get to hear the bass come in. It's very warm. Man, I love the bass tone.
The bass and the drum grooves, dude. Don't get me wrong. I like crazy riffing and really heavy shit and blast beats and stuff like that. But I think that this band shines when they let their musicianship come out to play. Like, these folks are all very talented, but when they jam, and those jams are all over this record, and I love the slowdowns. I'm telling you what, man, the drum and bass, those working in tandem with each other is mwah, because not only is the bass line tight and catchy and kind of funky, but the drums, the cymbal work that goes with it, it's awesome.
Violet Light Decays in particular, there's a section where everything drops out, which that song leads in doomy and sinister. Yes. It's just a dark, nasty sounding song, lots of crazy riffs, and then there's a section where it just kind of drops out to this drum and bass groove, and you get a frequent thing that shows up in here, this kind of haunting, clean, almost like backwards guitar sort of effect. Like, it kind of gives this album like a more cosmic atmosphere overall. Like, I don't know, a lot of this I would like say like it's like listening to Death, except, you know, you might have like had some mushrooms beforehand and this is how it sounds now. But these breaks, I think, are necessary considering like all the crazy shit that goes in here. But at the same time, again, I think it's digestible. Namely, one of the reasons here is because the songs aren't necessarily that long. The longest track in here is just shy of 7 minutes, the last track. But a lot of this is still within a digestible, like 5 minute range. Like, yeah, they're very busy, but they get back to like repeating a lot of riffs and melodies. It isn't so like all over the place with dissonance and just crazy technical, like jazzy everything. Again, this band likes to get down to riffs, like songs like Breaking the Barriers of Hope and Unspoken Oath. Unspoken Oath, in particular, probably the riffiest, straightforward song on here, even though it's still fucking bonkers when it comes down to like the riff work. But it's just like kind of like 90s death metal overall, but with like a technical edge to it.
It's got a little bit of thrash to it, but this is one of the songs in particular where when they do lock in on a groove, because there's a lot of transitions going on here, but this song, when they do lock in on the groove, the riff is solid and it's expanded upon well, but they don't deviate from it. Like, they hold on to that riff a bunch and they just build on it like you would with a prog song. But at the same time, it's still straightforward and to the point. It's the only time where I feel that anything is really locked down and focused upon.
Yeah, it's like the old school death metal kind of bit there. And that's still like a big part of this. Like, this still has a very old school sound. Like, the production itself, while it is pretty crisp overall. It's got that 90s grit to it. Now, this was mixed by Seth Manchester of The Body, and I believe he's done some work with High Command as well.
That makes sense.
And this was mastered by Dan Lowndes of Cruciamentum, who, the drummer in this band, drums for Cruciamentum. Both these guys did a marvelous job on here. Especially, again, when those clean dropouts come in, because you can really hear all the other intricacies. Like, when this opens up to an atmospheric section, it feels big. It feels expansive. And that overall, it kind of, like, goes beyond, like, the old school death metal charm for me. Like, of course, I love my gritty, like, 90s death metal and shit like that. This still has that, but it's more evocative. It's more intricate. Like, this kind of goes beyond a lot of, like, just flat out old school death metal and a lot of, like, retro old school death metal acts where there's just more, like, intricacy to the riff work. There's a lot more in the way of, like, nuanced transitions. Like, they're not easy transitions to nail, especially with the frequent off-time drumming on here. Like, man, it's easier to follow after a couple of listens, but this guy is doing crazy accents and shit. And, dude, like, everyone on here is playing their asses off.
Yep. I will agree about multiple listens. The first listen, I was mind blown. And then the second listen, I was still mind blown, but I was like, okay, I get it. It sounds more cohesive the more you listen to it. So, and that's a really cool thing too, because that's something you want as a band as well. Not only do you want people to listen to it once, you want people to buy it and listen to it multiple times. And as this record goes on, there's a lot more that you catch, but a lot more you can latch onto as well.
For me, this album kind of runs a lot like Horrendous's last album.
Yeah.
It has a lot of just, crazy proggy sections. And again, it kind of steps outside of, like, what's generally expected out of death metal, which, death metal is pretty wide ranging. But when you hear something described as old school death metal, there's generally, like, an expectation. And this goes well beyond it. But again, it's smart about going back to, like, just solid, flat out riffs that I think any death metal fan could get into. Violet Light Decays in particular, there's a transition in there that sounds like it could have been plucked off of Death's Leprosy. I'm always for that. And dynamics across the board. My God, again, the songwriting is crazy, but also it comes down to the vocals too. The vocals on here start off as, like, big cavernous roars, like there's just that right amount of reverb on them. But as they went on, a lot of different vocal dynamics came up. Those roars start turning into, like, more ghastly screams. They're, like, very anguished and desperate. And then, kind of out of nowhere, and I didn't expect this, clean vocals. I didn't expect any clean vocals at all, but the bassist, Jammin, does these clean, haunting, ghostly vocals, which, honestly, they come in at, like, interesting spots. Like, sometimes in the heavier spots, which I don't think fit quite as well, but in the clean, like, those more, like, atmospheric sections, I think they work really well.
Reminded me a lot of the clean female vocals that are in Inanimate Existence.
Man, I haven't thought of that band in a while. Honestly, what I thought of was the band Unholy from Finland, but this is less, like, avant-garde and weird. I pretty much loved this entire thing. In terms of any negatives on here, honestly, I really don't have much. Like, I think the songwriting here is excellent. It's very busy, but it's still very digestible. Like, this isn't, again, like, so technical, you're like, just, fuck it. I can't do this, musical calculus right now. There is one interlude track I could do or do without. Like, it's there. I think it's good. Discarnate, which is a more ambient track. Like, you get these clean guitars and lush waves in the background. It's a pleasant day at the death metal beach, I guess. But honestly, like, it kind of feels like a little bit of filler, but it's not terrible at all. And I do think it's a nice little break before you get down to Violet Light Decays, which is just a monster of a track. Like, honestly, one of my favorite ones on here. I will say that some of the song titles are a little bit long. Track 3, Breathe, Transcend, and then in parentheses, we have Into the Glowing Streams of Forever. That's a lot to write out. Same thing with Echoing Chambers Within the Dismal Mind.
For us reviewers, I hate writing out long song titles. That's not a gripe against the band. That's just a gripe of my own laziness.
So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. And honestly, I'm bordering on that 4.5. Like, it could grow to a 4.5 after more listens. I've had 3 listens with this. My brain feels like it's been spun around in a tilt-a-whirl. And I like it. Like, this kind of has that same appeal, again, as, like, Later Death, Horrendous. Definitely Blood Incantation vibes, though, condensed. Like, the songs don't feel as drawn out, and, you know, I feel like they're a lot more digestible that way. But this appeals to me on multiple levels, where this has, like, a lot of old-school death metal charm, but it also has that techie, proggy weirdness. It just has, I don't know, like, a lot of stuff going on, and I think it really comes together well. Again, everyone on this album is doing a marvelous job. And again, I like the restraint shown on the fretless bass, where it is just like, you know, straight up catchy bass lines.
I love it.
Again, I don't hear that very often, so I kind of appreciate that. But yeah, this album is a riff storm, and it's fucking awesome. If you're a big fan, again, of like a lot of the bands we mentioned, plus I will say Time Ghoul, and I also throw in like Ulthar in there too.
Cool.
Yeah, bands that get busy with technical, catchy riffs. Check this out. This is a monstrous debut.
I'm going to go ahead and agree. I'm going to give it a nice solid 4 myself. And there is also a possibility it could move to a 4.5. This is a very, very good record. To be able to play with that level of technicality and be able to transition on a dime like these guys do, that in itself is impressive. I like the fact that these are old school death metal songs that flow like prog songs. I think that's the best way to really actually put it. One of my personal favorite things about most of these songs are those jammy moments, man. When they slow down and bust into a groove, it is the biggest, fattest, warmest, tastiest thing out there. It's like a big, warm, gooey death metal hug, and that's what I like. But don't get me wrong, the songs are awesome. And when they lock into a groove, they really lock into a groove. Another cool thing that this band does is when they are jamming and they are going crazy, they know when to shut the hell up and let the song breathe and let everything flow, and just kind of out into the ether we go, and it gives the brain a chance to catch up to what's going on. Plus you get a little bit of booty shaking. Like, the songs are very well done. I'm very impressed by that. The drum work on here is incredible. I can't wait to see this guy playing Cruciamentum, but I also can't wait to see this band whenever the hell they tour. I will definitely go and shake the drummer's hand and be like, you, sir, know how to play your cymbals, and that's pretty neat. It is very riffy, but a lot of the times when you get the more lockdown riffs, they appear behind the leads or behind lead melodies. Like, they are there as the glue for everything. If you're into bands, like we said, Blood Incantation, Gorguts, Death, Atheist, any number of just really awesome, technical, you know, kind of spacey, weird death metal bands, you're probably really going to dig this. I'd recommend checking it out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we'll be doing at some point this month, maybe on 420.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe later. I don't know. I guarantee it'll probably be pretty dumb.
That's a great guess.
Yeah, no, we'll probably talk about some stupid shit, but it'll be fun. Anyway. Membership is the main way to support the channel. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. That is linked down below. And of course, if you would like to join this absolute buffoonery, we'll be completely honest, there's a join button down there for you to press and then look at and go, what have I done?
Even if you don't push the join button, it's cool. We're just thankful that you're here. We appreciate all of our subscribers and everybody that has helped make this channel into something really awesome. Tons of stuff coming your way. Album reviews, discography rankings. We got At the Gates coming up next. And a really cool segment that we're about to unveil that goes kind of in conjunction with these discography rankings. Should be a little bit more interactive for you guys too. We think you're going to like it. Beyond that, like I said, tons of stuff. But thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming and joining us and allowing us into your computer rooms or your living rooms or wherever you decide to put our faces into. I don't know. I can't imagine showing this to my family, but it's not a big deal. We appreciate it. Thank you.
We're lucky they're not putting our faces into brick walls and windows. But, you know, hey. But hey, who knows? You might get your chance if you see us at Maryland Death Fest. Don't put our faces through brick walls or windows.
Yeah, please don't.
Pretty please.
My insurance isn't that good.
He bruises very easily.
I'm already bruised just thinking about it, so don't do it.
But seriously, though, thank you guys for, like, literally everything, and we will catch you later.